In the hierarchy of hell, where demons reign in darkness and ancient evil festers, there exists a being second only to Satan himself in power and malevolence. His name has echoed through millennia, whispered in fear by the faithful and invoked by those who traffic with darkness. He is called Beelzebub, the Lord of the Flies, the Prince of Demons, one of the 7 princes of hell who commands legions of the damned. But Beelzebub's story is far older and more complex than most realize. Before he became synonymous with evil itself, before Christianity cast him as Satan's right hand, he was worshipped as a god. This is the complete story of Beelzebub, from ancient deity to infernal lord, a tale that spans thousands of years and reveals how gods become demons and how names carry power across the ages. To understand Beelzebub, we must travel back nearly 3,000 years to the ancient land of Canaan, to the Philistine city of Ekron, located in what is now modern-day Israel. There, in a magnificent temple, the people worshipped a god they called Beelzebub, which in their language meant Baal the Prince, or Lord of the High Place. Baal was one of the most important deities in the ancient Near East, a storm god associated with fertility, agriculture, and the life-giving rains that made crops grow in that arid land. He was depicted as a mighty warrior wielding lightning bolts, riding upon clouds, bringing both destruction and blessing. The worship of Beelzebub was widespread and deeply rooted in Canaanite culture. Temples dedicated to him stood in many cities, and his priests held considerable power. The rituals associated with Baal worship were elaborate and, according to biblical accounts, sometimes included practices that the Israelites found abhorrent, including ritual prostitution and possibly even child sacrifice, though modern scholars debate the accuracy of these claims. What is certain is that Baal represented everything that stood in opposition to the worship of Yahweh, the God of Israel. The Israelites, who had settled in Canaan after their exodus from Egypt, were strictly monotheistic. Their God, Yahweh, demanded exclusive worship and forbade the veneration of any other deities. But the Canaanite gods, particularly Baal, were a constant temptation. The agricultural festivals, the promise of good harvests, the established religious infrastructure of the land, all of these drew some Israelites away from exclusive worship of Yahweh. The Hebrew prophets railed against Baal worship, seeing it as the greatest threat to their people's covenant with God. It was in this context of religious conflict that Beelzebub began his transformation from god to demon. The Hebrew scribes and prophets in their writings began to mock and denigrate the Canaanite deity. They took his name, Beelzebub, Lord of the High Place, and twisted it into Beelzebub, which meant Lord of the Flies. This was a deliberate insult, transforming a title of majesty into something associated with filth, decay, and corruption. Flies, after all, gathered around garbage and corpses, symbols of death and uncleanliness. By calling him the Lord of the Flies, the Hebrew writers were saying that this supposed god was nothing more than a demon who ruled over corruption and decay. The most famous biblical reference to Beelzebub appears in the 2nd book of Kings. King Ahaziah of Israel had fallen through the lattice of his upper chamber and was seriously injured. Instead of consulting the prophets of Yahweh about whether he would recover, he sent messengers to inquire of Beelzebub, the god of Ekron. This act of turning to a foreign deity instead of to Yahweh was seen as a grave sin. The prophet Elijah intercepted the messengers and pronounced God's judgment. Because Ahaziah had consulted Beelzebub instead of the God of Israel, he would surely die. And indeed, the king died just as Elijah had prophesied. This story is significant because it shows Beelzebub still being treated as a god, albeit a false one, rather than as a demon. But as Jewish theology developed, particularly during and after the Babylonian exile, the understanding of evil spirits and demons became more sophisticated. The Jews encountered Persian religious ideas, including Zoroastrian concepts of cosmic dualism, the battle between good and evil, light and darkness. These influences helped shape a more developed Jewish demonology. By the time of the Second Temple period, roughly from 516 BCE to 70 CE, Beelzebub had been fully transformed in Jewish thought from a false god into a powerful demon, indeed into the prince of demons. This is the Beelzebub we encounter in the New Testament, where he plays a crucial role in one of the most significant confrontations between Jesus and the religious authorities of his time. The Gospels of Matthew, Mark, and Luke all record an incident where Jesus cast out a demon from a man who was blind and mute. The crowds who witnessed this miracle were amazed and began to wonder if Jesus might be the Messiah, the son of David. But the Pharisees, the religious leaders who opposed Jesus, needed to explain away this miraculous healing without acknowledging Jesus' divine authority. So they made a shocking accusation. It is only by Beelzebub, the prince of demons, that this man casts out demons. This accusation was deeply serious. The Pharisees were essentially claiming that Jesus was in league with Satan, that his power came not from God but from the ruler of hell itself. Jesus' response was both logical and profound. He pointed out the absurdity of their claim. Every kingdom divided against itself is laid waste, and no city or house divided against itself will stand. And if Satan casts out Satan, he is divided against himself. How then will his kingdom stand? Jesus was making a simple but devastating point. If he was casting out demons by the power of Beelzebub, that would mean Satan was working against himself, that the kingdom of darkness was at war with itself. Such a kingdom could not stand. The very fact that Jesus was defeating demons proved that he was not working for their master, but against him. Jesus then went further, stating that if he cast out demons by the Spirit of God, then the kingdom of God had come upon them. This passage is crucial for understanding Beelzebub's role in Christian demonology. Here, Beelzebub is explicitly identified as the Prince of Demons, a title that in other passages is given to Satan himself. This has led to centuries of theological debate. Are Beelzebub and Satan the same being, or are they different entities? Is Beelzebub simply another name for the devil, or is he a separate demon who serves as Satan's chief lieutenant? Different Christian traditions have answered this question in different ways. Some theologians have treated Beelzebub and Satan as synonymous, two names for the same evil entity. Others have maintained that they are distinct beings, with Satan as the supreme ruler of hell, and Beelzebub as his second in command, the executor of his will, the general of his demonic armies. The latter interpretation became particularly influential in medieval Christian demonology. During the Middle Ages, Christian scholars became fascinated with categorizing and understanding the demonic realm. They created elaborate hierarchies of hell, mapping out the infernal kingdom with the same precision that theologians use to describe the celestial hierarchies of angels. In these systems, Beelzebub consistently appeared near the very top of the demonic hierarchy. The most influential of these medieval grimoires and demonological texts was the Pseudo-Monarchia Daemonum, False Monarchy of Demons, written by Johann Weyer in 1577, and the Lesser Key of Solomon, also known as the Lemegeton, compiled in the 17th century. These texts described Beelzebub as one of the most powerful demons in hell, often placing him second only to Lucifer himself in the infernal hierarchy. According to these medieval sources, Beelzebub held the title of Prince of Demons and commanded vast legions of lesser demons. Some texts claimed he commanded 66 legions, each legion consisting of 6,666 demons, giving him control over more than 440,000 demonic entities. He was said to be the demon most skilled in tempting humans through pride, one of the 7 deadly sins. In some traditions, he was specifically associated with the sin of gluttony, while in others he represented pride or envy. The medieval grimoires also provided descriptions of how Beelzebub might appear when summoned by practitioners of dark magic. Unlike the beautiful angelic appearance sometimes attributed to Lucifer before his fall, Beelzebub was typically described as monstrous. Some accounts depicted him as an enormous fly, a literal interpretation of his title as Lord of the Flies. Others described him as appearing in various hideous forms, sometimes as a giant calf, sometimes as a goat, sometimes as a being with multiple heads or covered in flies and surrounded by the stench of decay. One particularly influential text was the Dictionnaire Infernal Dictionary, by Jacques Collin de Plancy, published in 1818. This encyclopedia of demonology described Beelzebub as supreme chief of the infernal empire, and founder of the Order of the Fly, a mockery of holy orders of knights. The book included illustrations of demons, and the image of Beelzebub as a giant fly with a human face became iconic, influencing popular culture's depiction of the demon for generations to come. But perhaps the most famous literary treatment of Beelzebub came from John Milton's epic poem Paradise Lost, published in 1667. In this masterwork of English literature, Milton portrayed the fall of Lucifer and the war in heaven, and Beelzebub played a crucial role as Satan's closest companion and advisor. Milton's Beelzebub is not merely a mindless monster, but a complex character, proud, intelligent, and deeply committed to Satan's cause. In Paradise Lost, after Satan and his followers have been cast out of heaven and find themselves in hell, it is Beelzebub who speaks second, after Satan himself, at the great infernal council. Milton describes him as one next himself in power and next in crime long after known in Palestine, and named Beelzebub. Beelzebub advises Satan on strategy, suggesting that since they cannot defeat God directly, they should corrupt his newest creation, humanity, as an act of revenge. This council sets in motion the events that lead to the temptation and fall of Adam and Eve. Milton's portrayal was enormously influential, cementing Beelzebub's position in popular imagination as Satan's right hand, his most trusted general, the demon who turns Satan's will into action. This image of Beelzebub as the strategic mastermind, the demon of cunning and planning, contrasts with the more brutish or monstrous depictions found in earlier medieval texts. The symbolism of flies associated with Beelzebub carries deep significance beyond simple mockery. In ancient times, flies were associated with plague, disease, and death. They gathered around corpses and waste, spreading corruption wherever they went. In this sense, Beelzebub as the Lord of the Flies represents the spreading of spiritual corruption, the way sin and evil spread from person to person, contaminating everything they touch. Just as flies can infest a clean space and make it foul, Beelzebub represents the demonic power to corrupt what is pure, to spread spiritual disease throughout humanity. Some scholars have also noted that flies were associated with divination and prophecy in the ancient world. The buzzing of flies was sometimes interpreted as carrying messages from the spirit world. In this context, Beelzebub as Lord of the Flies might represent false prophecy, demonic deception, disguised as divine revelation. This interpretation aligns with biblical warnings about false prophets and spirits of deception. In the system of the 7 deadly sins that became standardized in medieval Christian theology, different demons were associated with different sins. While Lucifer was typically associated with pride, the sin that caused his own fall, Beelzebub was most commonly linked with gluttony, the excessive consumption and waste that flies symbolize. However, some traditions associated him with pride instead, or with envy, showing that his role in the demonic hierarchy was understood in various ways by different theologians. The practice of exorcism in the Catholic Church and other Christian traditions often invoked Beelzebub's name. Exorcists believed that knowing the specific names and ranks of demons gave them power over these entities. In the Roman ritual, the official book of Catholic exorcism prayers, demons are commanded to depart in the name of Jesus Christ, but exorcists also sometimes directly addressed specific demons, including Beelzebub, commanding them by name to release their hold on the possessed person. Historical records of exorcisms frequently mention Beelzebub. In the famous case of the Loudun possessions in 17th century France, where an entire convent of Ursuline nuns was allegedly possessed, Beelzebub was named as one of the chief demons involved. The exorcists claimed that Beelzebub had entered the body of the Mother Superior and was leading the other demons in tormenting the nuns. The case became a sensation, attracting thousands of spectators and ultimately leading to the execution of Father Urbain Grandier, who was accused of summoning the demons through witchcraft. In more recent times, Beelzebub has remained a powerful figure in popular culture, appearing in countless books, films, and other media. William Golding's 1954 novel Lord of the Flies took its title directly from Beelzebub's name, using it as a symbol for the evil that lurks within human nature. In the novel, the Lord of the Flies is a pig's head on a stick, covered with flies, which becomes an object of worship for boys stranded on an island as they descend into savagery. The demon's name perfectly captures Golding's theme about how civilization is a thin veneer over humanity's capacity for evil. Beelzebub has appeared in numerous horror films, often as a powerful demon summoned by occultists or as a name invoked during exorcisms. In some modern occult traditions, particularly those influenced by the grimoire tradition, Beelzebub is still treated as a real entity that can be summoned and bargained with, though such practices are condemned by mainstream Christianity as extremely dangerous. The transformation of Beelzebub from Baal, an ancient Canaanite god, to Beelzebub, the lord of the flies and prince of demons, is a fascinating example of how religious polemics can reshape spiritual entities across millennia. What began as a deliberate insult by Hebrew writers, changing Lord of the High Place to Lord of the Flies, became accepted as the demon's actual name and nature. The god who once received worship in grand temples became the demon who rules over corruption and decay. This transformation also reflects the broader pattern of how Christianity dealt with pagan deities. Rather than simply denying their existence, Christian theology often recast them as demons, fallen angels who had deceived humanity into worshipping them as gods. In this framework, Beelzebub was not a false god who never existed, but a real demonic entity who had successfully convinced the ancient Canaanites to worship him, leading them away from the true God. Today, Beelzebub remains one of the most recognized names in demonology, second perhaps only to Satan or Lucifer himself. Whether understood as another name for the devil, as Satan's chief lieutenant, or as a powerful demon in his own right, Beelzebub represents the organized, strategic face of evil, not the chaotic destruction of lesser demons, but the calculated corruption that spreads like flies from a source of decay, contaminating everything it touches. The Lord of the Flies stands as a reminder of how ancient religious conflicts continue to shape our understanding of good and evil, how the gods of one culture become the demons of another, and how names carry power across thousands of years. From the temples of ancient Ekron to the pages of medieval grimoires, from Milton's epic poetry to modern horror films, Beelzebub has endured as a symbol of demonic power, the prince who rules in hell's hierarchy, second only to the devil himself, commanding his legions of darkness in the eternal war against the forces of light.